Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jackie if you're new here. I'm so excited to have you back for another talk about books. Today I kind of just wanted to go over one of my most frequently asked questions on my book Instagram account. So for those of you who don't know, I do have an Bookstagram called JY Books, and on there I just do a lot of different reviews on a lot of different genres, and I thought that doing these videos would be such a fun supplement to my book Instagram page. But I do get a lot of DMs. This has been my most frequently asked question about how I'm reading the books that I do. Do I read the ebooks mostly? Do I have a lot more physical books? But of course, first I wanted to give you a mini review and update on These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which I did finish since my last video. And then of course, another update on what I'm currently reading. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's start out strong talking about These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling based in Shanghai in the 1920s, except instead of rival houses, you have rival gangs, and our Romeo and Juliet are the heirs to these two rival gangs in Shanghai, except for the fact that there is now a madness that is spreading through Shanghai. Our two main characters, Roma and Juliet, they do not know what is causing it, nor do they have any idea what's going on, and neither do their parents, who are the leads in this gang, or their friends. But both parties of each gang are getting killed from this madness without discrimination, as well as so just are the people of Shanghai are dying from this madness as well. Roma and Juliet decide they both care about their people dying, and so they decide to put aside this blood feud that both of their gangs have against each other and work together, although it is forbidden. And so this story is kind of them working to find out what the cause of this madness is, along with their trusted friends from each gang, all the while navigating these Western powers that were especially prominent in Shanghai in the 1920s that were coming in, as well as, you know, communist and nationalist parties that were vying for support in Shanghai. And so we kind of have all these different factors while they're doing this investigation. But something that I really loved about this book was, of course, how unique it was, but how much I really enjoyed the characters, and not even the two main characters, but all the side characters, like their friends that helped them in this investigation. I really loved all of them. I loved the different personalities of people in both gangs, and just the way that Chloe Gong painted this picture of Shanghai and all the turmoil that was happening to it, and her descriptions were so beautiful. And so I gave this on my Bookstagram a 4 out of 5 stars, and I think the only reason that I give this 4 out of 5 stars is that there are some magical aspects to the book that I don't know if they necessarily fit in. This book doesn't really have magical qualities at first, and then it has some thrown in, and so I'd say that's the reason why I didn't give it a full 5 out of 5 stars, just because, you know, it felt like some things maybe weren't as cohesive. But I loved this book. I would highly recommend it, and I really enjoyed it. I think it is so worth it for the characters, this incredibly unique plot. Just be aware that it is pretty gory in some of the descriptions because of this madness. And of course, like in the book, these two rival gangs are pretty violent, and so with this blood feud. So that's something to keep in mind, but otherwise I would say go for it because I really enjoyed it. Okay, and then let's get into what I'm currently reading. So I don't know if you guys do this at all, but I tend to start a couple books at a time, or a few different books at a time, and then once one really catches my interest, I'll kind of stop the other one for a second, finish that one out, and then go back to the other one I was reading and finish that one out. So it's maybe a strange process, but it kind of depends on my mood too, right? Like I could have 2 incredible books, but I'm maybe more in the mood for another one in that moment. And so then that's okay. I can just read the one I'm in the mood for and then come back to the other one later when I'm in the mood for that. But at least I'll know that I'm interested in both. So, okay, so this is kind of a rare occurrence for me, but I do have the physical copies of these books. And so I'll go ahead and talk about this one first. So I got this book, Clap When You Land, from, I don't know if any of you are from the Chicagoland area that are watching this, but that's where I'm based. And this is from Semicolon Books, which is a local bookstore in Chicago, and it is Black female owned. So shop local, everyone. They're amazing. They had great customer service, and I got my book right away. And of course it's beautiful. So definitely check them out. But Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this book is about 2 sisters who don't know that they are sisters. So one lives in the Dominican Republic, the other lives in New York City, and the father dies in this plane crash. And basically then the girls find out about each other, and it's this whole story of their relationship, grief, loss. I just started it, so everything I told you can be found in the little blurb, the description. But I really love it so far. So the cool thing about this book is that it's in poem form. Okay, there we go. So it is in poem format, and it's beautiful. And I'm not a huge poetry girl. Like, this is not, I would say, the typical style of writing that I would read or even seek out, but it just got such amazing reviews, and it seems like such a powerful story. And I mean, I'm only on page, I'm only on page 32, and I already feel that it's incredibly powerful as a story, and it's going to be so moving. It's moving already, even just talking about the first steps of loss that these girls are going through. And where I am right now is just when they're finding out that their father died. And so there's so much more to come in this story, obviously, but even up to page 32 has just been such a beautiful ride. I think this is the one that I'm going to finish first, because I just really like it so far. I'm using an old Starbucks gift card as my bookmark. So love that for me. Okay, the next book that I'm reading, I guess at the same time, there's 3 here because this box set was on sale. And I have heard incredible things about Brandon Sanderson. So the first book in this trilogy here is Mistborn. So that is the book that I am currently reading. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is a epic fantasy book, and I've heard that it is incredible. And so, you know me, like, if you watched my last episode, I talked about how much I adore fantasy novels, and I've heard that this is one of the best. So I am so excited to read this trilogy. And honestly, let's see, I think I'm even less far in this book. Oh no, I'm like at the same page. That's crazy. I'm on page 31 in Mistborn right now, and it is already action-packed, and it was good from the start as well. But I think I am going to go with Clap When You Land first, and then go ahead and probably do the Mistborn series, in case any of you were wondering. I hope that that helped. So now I want to go ahead and jump into talking about what I mentioned in the beginning, which is I want to answer the question of how I read my books and how I read so many. This is the most frequently asked question that I get to my Instagram DMs on my book page. And it's just asking, what do I use to read? What do I find that's the most comfortable, the most affordable, things like that. So I'll go ahead and show you over here. So I have my Kindle Paperwhite. This is not the book I'm reading, it's just an ad. I think you can remove the ads on your Paperwhite, but they've never really bothered me, so I haven't taken them out. I started using a Kindle back in high school when they first came out. So my boyfriend got me a Kindle for one of our very first Christmases together. So the Kindle Paperwhite is what he got me, one of the original versions. I think it might have been even like the Kindle Paperwhite 1. I think it was pretty new at the time. But he knew how much I loved reading, and I definitely at the time was buying all these physical copies of books. And so I think he just had the foresight to say, like, you read all the time, it'd be convenient for you to have a Kindle. But I was hesitant against any other kind of e-reader because I love actual books so much. Ever since then, the Kindle Paperwhite is what I've been using. I wish this video was sponsored, it's not. So this is just my real thoughts about the Kindle, but it's amazing. So the Kindle Paperwhite is just for reading. That's it. You can't like go on other apps. You can go to the Amazon store to get your ebooks through it. Like you can look up books on there. So it connects to internet and everything, but it is solely for reading. It's in black and white, and you can, let's see, it's specifically not supposed to hurt your eyes or anything while you're reading it. It's supposed to mimic paper, and you can read in the dark too, like that doesn't stop anything. And it can hold a lot of books, which is great too, because I think one of the most inconvenient things about always having hard copies of books is that if you're traveling or you want to bring them with you somewhere, they do take up more room. And for me, the books I read tend to be a lot of pages usually. And so it's hard to fit that in with other stuff sometimes. But it's like the size of a book. It's a little bit smaller maybe. I mean, compared to this, it's a lot smaller, but it's not too bad. Like, I like reading off of this, and you can change the font size and all that stuff, and it doesn't hurt my head to read, and I'm someone that gets a lot of headaches. Okay, so here's kind of my home screen right now. So these are like my 6 books that I've been reading or downloaded recently. Let's see, like right now in this, I have 93 pages of books. So there's a ton of storage, and it can hold even more than this, but right now I have 558 books on this Kindle, which is crazy, right? Like that is so many, and I've read most of them. And so I love it. It doesn't hurt your eyes. You can read it at night. You can read it during the day, obviously. It fits in every purse I've ever had, and backpack easily. These things hold up for years, so as well. So I said I used my Kindle that my boyfriend had gotten me for years, 4 years maybe, and then he just upgraded me to the newer version like 2 Christmases ago. And so this thing has stayed tried and true, and I think I could have honestly still used the one he had given me. The battery was just having some issues when he upgraded for me. So it has been a steady companion for me and just such a great option. I think the other thing too that I really like about the Kindle Paperwhite and just using ebooks in general as well is that Amazon has deals all the time on ebooks, and so I tend to get my ebooks, unless it's like a brand new book that I'm splurging on or something, tends to have ebooks for like $2.99, $4.99. Of course, you like the newer ones will maybe be $9.99, or even I think it can get as high up to like $14. But that's still sometimes cheaper than the physical copy of a book, than a hard copy or a paperback. So it really just depends on what you want. But I like to wait until I can find sales on the ebook versions of things, or like if you choose no rush shipping on Amazon as well for things, they'll give you like $1 in ebook credit, and then that adds up if you are a shopper. And so sometimes I will get books for very little. Actually, most of the times I get ebooks for a very low price, which is nice. And I do tend to buy the books versus, I know like some people will do Kindle Unlimited and things like that, and I just find that I already have so many books that I want to read that Kindle Unlimited right now would not be the smartest decision for me to get a subscription when I'm already working through so many books that I already have on my Kindle and other like hard copies of books. And so I don't currently have Kindle Unlimited, but I have heard that people love that as well. And another deal that I've been finding a lot is that for ebooks too, a lot of the first books in series will be free. So they'll be like $0 for the first book in a series. So I recently did that with like 2 different series by the same author, but people were like raving about her books and I was like, I just want to check it out. And then I saw that both of like, she has 2 different series, this author, and so that both of them were free, like the first book was free. And so I went ahead and read both of those just the other day because it was free to me. And that actually happens more than you would think, or for very, very cheap prices. The other great thing about the Kindle is that you can use, or I'm sure another e-reader does similar too, but I'm just talking about the Kindle Paperwhite because that's what I have. I can easily download books from my library to the Kindle as well. And I do tend to buy them more than I'll do that, just because I don't know if anyone else is this way, but I love rereading my books, especially if I really like them. And so of course with library ebooks, like you get them for a certain amount of time because you're checking them out, even with it being digital, and then it will go back to the library after like a certain amount of time that you have to read it. If I just really love a series, I'll reread it. And so I tend to buy my Kindle books, but they're all pretty cheap anyway. So it hasn't been too much of an issue for me. Another thing I will do, you cannot download these on the Kindle, but I do see that Apple Books have really great sales sometimes on their digital books. And so it's not my favorite thing to do because I find that looking at a screen gives me headaches more, but I have an iPad as well, or my phone. And so if the ebook price is better on Apple Books, I might just go ahead and buy it there and then read it on my iPad or my phone. But I'd say if it is cheaper, it's usually not by much. So if you just get a Kindle, I would say that that's totally fine. Like you don't need to have 2 different reading devices or even 3. Although you can download the Kindle app as well on your iPad and your phone. So that's a pro tip, because then you can have all your books on all your different devices, which is great. The next thing I want to talk about is when I buy hardcovers or paperbacks, whatever it might be, where I usually get those. I do try to shop local or shop at a small business if I'm ordering newer books that I want in a physical copy. So for example, these. This book I got from Semicolon Chicago, which I talked about a little bit earlier, and that's because if I'm gonna go ahead and buy a book, I might as well support a small business. Of course, occasionally I'll get it from Barnes & Noble or something like that. I can't really resist if I go in, but I'd say that's definitely not usually where I get it. And of course, like Goodwill and other thrift shops are great options for finding used books as well. If I know I want a certain series, but it's been out for a while, that's when I'll go to Amazon. And so what I like about Amazon, like finding books on Amazon, is that there is pretty much always a cheaper option to get a used copy of that book. Usually it'll be like $5 for a book, $6, and then Prime shipping. The biggest takeaway I would say is if you are hesitant about getting into different e-readers, I would not fear too much. And I don't want to just plug the Kindle, right? Like I'm sure there are a lot of other great options, so do your research and see what's best for you. But I was someone that always had just a ton of, you know, hard copies of books, and that's all I would buy. And while I still love the feel of a book in my hands, I would say the Kindle has done an amazing job of supplementing that and helping me not spend as much money too, which is a definite win. So don't be afraid to give it a try is all I'm saying. And I know you might be hesitant to switch to an e-reader, but it has been really great for me, and so I hope it'll be the same for you. Okay guys, well that is it. That is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I answered your question about what I like to read on and how I typically get my books. Feel free to leave me comments down below on what you like to read on, if you cannot do an e-reader, if you have the Kindle Paperwhite too, or what your preference is, or if you think you're gonna try it. And of course, as always, please let me know any new books that you're reading and loving so I can add those to my list right away. Okay guys, well thanks again for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.